This is my presentation for Module 7 for Planning for Instruction, the importance of a learning environment. So I went over the 2 articles that we were supposed to read as well as the videos, and emotional health and physical health of your classroom is really important both ways. Emotional health and tone of your classroom is your job as the teacher. That relies solely on you. I mean, your students have a bit to do with it, yes, but you're the one that controls how people feel in your classroom. Rules and procedures also need to be clear for a healthy emotional environment. Your view on acceptable behavior, not only just for your students, but also for you, also needs to be known. Like when I introduce myself to my students and expectations and stuff on the first day of school, not only do I read through the syllabus, I also talk to them about how I plan to behave in my classroom and how I will deal with them and what I expect from them as far as behavior with me. This article from Mark Phillips also says that icebreakers are really good for emotional health in a classroom. I'm socially awkward and I'm getting over it. I can. I just have not ever been the best at icebreakers, and I haven't quite found one that fits me. I don't know how else to explain that, but I do plan on using them eventually. Also, it's really important to make sure your students know that you see them as an individual. You see them as a person, a soul, not some student body just sitting in your classroom taking up your time. I've had teachers that treat people both ways, so. Again, going on to physical arrangement in the next article by Mark Phillips, he said that this is key for student morale and motivation. A clean, warm space is more inviting and better for you than an impersonal, cold, dingy, old room, right? So I like to think of this as like hotel rooms. We've all had some pretty sketchy situations with hotel rooms, right? So the Super 8 motel, to go to the Hamptons in this nice little suite. Which one do you feel more at home at, more relaxed in? Exactly. So your classroom needs to be reflective of that too. I can't talk today. Can you tell? Your classroom, yes, it does need to be comfortable. You also need to make sure that it matches you, your style of teaching, the mood you're trying to set with your students, and your overall, like what you teach, your subject matter, Student comfort will increase quality of student work. And my favorite fact from this article, Mark says that natural lighting is proven to lower student depression. That means administration needs to give us teachers some dang windows. Feels like a prison up in here, like I'm trapped in a cement box. Yeah. So this is what my overall classroom looks like. We're in quarantine right now, and my school and districts around us, if we don't have to be in our classroom, they really don't want us in the classroom because they've already used special disinfectant and everything in the classroom, and if we go in there, they have to redo that. So staying away from my classroom for now. But this is a diagram of what it looks like. So as you can see, let me go ahead and get my little pointer going. This is my entrance to my classroom. Right away I have this cabinet and then upper cabinets on top, as well as a sink, trash can, and then this is where our storage cubbies are. My classroom is small, it's old, and my biggest pet peeve with it is my storage cubbies that I have. I have a set over here, yeah, but my storage cubbies that I have going on make me so mad because they come right into the center, and actually they take up more room than what I've shown on here. They come into the center of the room and they just really frustrate me. I like an open floor plan. I like to be able to see the whole entire room, whereas this area and this area provides for a lot of visual coverage from students that maybe like to do things that they probably shouldn't do. First 2 weeks of teaching went great with that, but now I have some hardcore proof of why maybe they shouldn't be designed like that. So then I have a mat board cutter, large table, and then I have a bunch of glassware because the teacher before me liked glass. I don't. So that's going to go into storage eventually. This area, I'll tell you now, this is where I hope to transform into like my ceramics and sculpture section. Keep all the clay in this area, all the two-dimensional stuff over here. Let's go ahead and talk about my desks. I tried to find a picture of what they are. They're drafting desks, of course, and they're really nice. They really are. They're sturdy. And they have the ability to like pull up and down for like an easel. What I don't like about them is there's not too many ways to rearrange my classroom because they're so bulky. This is one whole desk. It's 4 kids per desk. There's no way to pull them apart or anything. So they're stuck in clusters like this. And the way my room is set up, I have the line of them right here, and then I have one little offset over here. So that provides for a little bit of student choice. I've like in my smaller classes, I have 1 or 2 students that prefer to sit over here because they spread out, they like to work huge, and they work better on their own. No big deal. I also have a really tiny smart TV that I've just started casting my demonstrations from here to there. This little bench thing really belongs in the garbage because I'm pretty sure it's broken at least twice since I've had it. These are really old chairs to sit in because they're comfy. We'll work on it. And then this is where my computers are at. I've got 3 student desktops with my little teacher desk. Right there, little pizza slice. Dark room, supply closet, which is really just I panicked and shoved everything that I didn't know what was into here. But we'll get it functioning eventually. So going back to the ceramics thing, what really bugs me is that I don't have any permanent space for potter wheels. Like this little clay storage area, this is one room up here, and it's very small, tiny, cramped, and annoying. So when I do have kids that want to throw, we have to pull them all out here, which is fine. Except then we have to push them all the way back into here. And I don't know if you've ever messed with potter's wheels, but they're not the most mobile of the equipment that I have available to me. So we got to move them all out here in front, but then we have to put them back because, as you can see, this is where my various paints are stored, which is what the majority of other classes prefer to do. That's enough about my little classroom. So again, my current classroom is really outdated. White walls, like the cinder block things, you know, I don't think they've been painted in a really long time. There's some murals that make it look like the early 90s threw up in there, which is fine. No big deal. My countertops are kind of suffering a little bit. I have these really big cabinets, like they're really deep, but they're just empty boxes. There's no like shelving in there, so that's not very useful for me. They're really in the way, and I can't use them as cubbies because it's just an empty cabinet. Like I said, there's only one way to set up the drafting tables because they're built in clusters. I would prefer to have huge cabinets like the ones that I was talking about. I'd rather them be shelving because they'd be much more helpful then. And again, there's no permanent place for pottery wheels or for clay projects. My student behavior in my classroom, you know, focus can be a challenge like in the bigger classrooms because there's such a small place to work with. And like my Art 1 class, I have a mix of everyone from freshmen to seniors, and they typically tend to be a little more rowdy, so they have been this year. But ironically, that's been my class that I missed the most out of this whole quarantine thing. So, you know, focus can be a challenge. There's plenty of places to stay away from my site. But, you know, overall, all of my kids are really social. They're happy and relaxed. And honestly, you know, they've been really productive despite being a little bit cramped. I feel like I have a welcoming environment and my students do take ownership in it. So like Art 2 and up, I allow students to we have like removable ceiling tiles, so they can take them down and they get 1 to customize and paint whatever they want to do. And then it gets to go back up into the ceiling in the art room or in the library for display for however long. Like the teacher before me, she was my art teacher, and that's been going on like she taught for like 30 years, so she started that. There's a lot of colorful ceiling tiles. Music choice, I let my students have free range of it. It's not necessarily genres I prefer, but as long as they don't cuss and the topic that the artist is singing about is appropriate, I don't mind. They know that if they do break that rule, we get to listen to Mozart and Bach and other classical artists. That's really helped keep that issue down. I do also try to talk to each student at least once during the day, whether it just be visiting or asking them about their project and how they're doing. So that goes back to my emotional environment. I like to just sit and talk with my kids. I like to sit down amongst them, work with them on my own projects. I have an open sense of humor. I can't function unless I can be like funny, joking. That's not to say that I don't like demand respect from my kids, because they do. They respect me, but they also know that they can joke around with me and be funny in my classroom. I do ask them for their own personal inputs, whether it be like projects, subject-wise, what they would prefer to do in class, or, you know, even just asking them how they feel about my artwork, like what should I change. I'm also really open about my shortcomings. I don't feel like teachers should be putting on this show that we're perfect and we're like little mini walking gods that know everything. It's important for students to see that, you know, teachers are human too. And that's not, you know, to be inappropriate, but, you know, if you mess up, you mess up. If you don't know something, you don't. No big deal. But then I also like to walk through them with their own, whether it be like complications in projects or even just personal life. I've had several students open up to me about what's going on. So always there as an outlet for them. My physical arrangement, again, so my desks are like in a straight row in front of that whiteboard, as you could see. They are cluster drafting desks, so like one of the sets, as you saw, is separated from the rest. I don't mind it because it does allow students to work on their own if they want to, but they cannot see my whiteboard at all without having to move. So that's a bit of a challenge. I have two teeny tiny little bitty windows at the very back of my classroom, and that annoys me. So there's very little outside light that gets to come into my art room. But I do always make sure to keep my art room as organized, as clean as possible before I leave each day. And that also goes back on students too. They take care of the materials and supplies. I put that on them. They want nice brushes, they better keep the brushes nice. So that's worked pretty well. You know, like I said, my classroom is kind of small, so I don't necessarily have room for students to sit alone if they prefer. But the upside to cluster desks is that nobody has to sit alone. There'll always be somebody sitting with someone, meaning there's a little less social seclusion from there. And you know, students do have the option to sit alone and work on bigger projects in smaller classes. I do not do seating charts. One, because I have like the memory of a goldfish sometimes. And to me, a seating chart's just one more thing to have to keep on my mind amongst every other thing going on constantly in the classroom. So I don't do that. If students are respectful and they're responsible, I'll let them sit wherever they want. They tend to self-govern pretty well anyway. My ideal setup though, this is where it gets fun. My seating style, so I'll show that in a second, but I would much rather prefer to have like a horseshoe seating arrangement. It's like where everyone's seated almost in a semicircle. So that leaves the middle of the floor open. It also allows conversation of students. So like they can talk to each other from around the room, this and that. I also don't have to worry about certain students not being able to see what I'm doing, whether it be demonstration or it be on the whiteboard. Again, open floor space, it makes the room feel bigger, it's easier to clean, it's easier to feel organized. I would want a storage wall instead of cubbies. I would like a whole entire wall to be built for project storage. I would like more tech because I have a lot of students that are really interested in the whole digital art realm of things, but because I only have 3 desktops, that's really difficult to do. We also don't have one-to-one laptops, so that doesn't ease the situation at all. I also want like a more homey area for research, whether it be like with art history that we do, or it be for research and projects, sketching, drafting, planning. I work better when I'm comfortable, when I get to relax when I plan for things. I assume most of my students would feel the same way. So having furniture that are a little more comfortable in a secluded area away from paints and clay, I think would be beneficial. Even like for presentations and stuff when I introduce lessons, it's cool to kind of get to kick back and relax. Now, if I had no rules to what I could do with my classroom, I didn't have a budget to follow, a very sad budget. I would have huge windows. I love windows with all my heart, and I would also have plants everywhere. Again, bringing nature into the classroom helps with student morale and yours. I would also have a vaulted ceiling, and my classroom would be 3 times the size. I was introduced to the Good Life when we had our league in service, so it's like 8 different schools get together, and this year we went to Sublette, and Sublette has like the perfect art room. It's huge, the ceilings are tall as heck. It's like the theme that she has going on in her classroom, her colors like represent Vincent van Gogh, Starry Night. It's just, I love it. She has a section for 2-dimensional, she has a section for clay, she has her kilns and her glaze lab. It's just beautiful. And that's exactly what I want. Anyway, so 3 times the size for that. I also would really like to have an outside area for my kilns and for raku firing. So I don't have like any ventilation at all in my current classroom. I only have the little like vent going out for my kiln. Raku firing is very messy. It also deals with open flame, so being able to go outside with that would make things easier. I would also prefer an outside studio area, so like maybe some outside desks for resin work and spray paint, since those give off fumes. And again, I do not have ventilation in that classroom, so an outdoor part would be really nice for that. Again, I'd really like more tech so that I could allow my kids who really want to get into the digital side of things to be able to. And again, a place for 2-dimensional and a place for ceramics and sculpture. I kind of want like organized. Whereas right now, if I have a kid that wants to work on clay, they got to work on the desk that is used for painting and graphite. And clay does not exactly clean up off of surfaces as well as one would hope. This is the best visualization of my perfect ideal classroom. This just focuses on ceramics, but this would be the overall setup of what I would want anyway. So again, huge windows, plenty of shelf space, cubbies on the wall. I really love how they have the potter's wheel set up where they're facing each other, but they're still in a row. There's also like room over here for alone work. There's wedging tables, big tables, and again, room for independent work over here. And they have so many sinks, like that's amazing. And paper towel holders. Dispensers, not holders. But anyway, an extruder over here. Like it just keeps getting better and better the more I look at it. Super organized. It looks like it belongs. Like it's not crappily put together. So again, I'd want something like this. Again, I want the U shape, and that's coming up soon. Again, going back to the more comfortable place, small little couch would be fine, individual seating, coffee table, a rug. It looks like a very warm and inviting place to be. This is some of the equipment that I wish I had. So instead of the cluster desks that I have where, it's 4 kids per seat, I wouldn't mind having, like paired desks, so twin drafting tables. This set comes with storage. This is the set that Sublette has, and it's so beautiful. These desks, which I don't have a person to demonstrate the height, but these are actually standing height. So you can either sit at a bar stool, you know, or you can stand. I like to stand while I work. A lot of my students, I've realized, like to sit, and I don't know whether that's because I have short drafting desks or they just haven't thought about it before. So that would give the option to either sit or stand at your desk. I would also like some personal, just singular drafting desks. So that would give the ability for someone to sit on their own and work on bigger projects without bumping into neighbors. And then lastly, I have some really, really old easels that look like you'd probably need an update on your tetanus shot if you messed with them. But this is an easel that I have at home, actually, that I use for personal use. And this is the bar right here. So this length right here, you can expand from here all the way down to the floor. So that allows for huge project capabilities. Like I allow my students to buy their own large canvases. Like there's no way my budget would never allow me to have a huge collection of all different size canvases. So the largest size of canvas that I keep is 18 by 24, but my kids I have like 3 or 4 that love to bring in their own canvases and even build their own. So this would be handy. Easel for painting, like oil and acrylic wise. And then a small traditional desk like this would work fine for those who are painting, because then they can set up their palette and water everything else here, store brushes under there, etc. So that would be the other type of seating that I would prefer to have on the painting side. You already saw what Potter's wheels look like and how I'd want that set up. So this would be the seating arrangement that I was talking about, the horseshoe, because then that would allow me, 1, to see everybody working, 2, for conversation however kids wanted to conversate, 3, not only could I demonstrate up here, but I could also walk amongst them and show them closer and easier, rather than trying to like squeeze behind kids like I have to now. This would be my ideal setup. And then these are all of my references. I can scoot myself over here. Oh, I can't. But these are my references. Wow, it just keeps moving. Okay, well, hope that made sense. This was my Mod 7 presentation.